Dope. So, yeah, here. Um, most of my other videos are my objective journal, and up to like 4. I'm about to start 5 journals now. Um, objective journal, just facts about the day, what it is, just a tracking system. Then I got subjective journal, where I sort of write, explore my mind, the mind, life, whatever, and highlight sort of events and key takeaways from those events. It's like a very much a reflective journal. It's not really restricted by anything. Research journal, pretty self-explanatory. Anything that I'm researching, put it in there. Health journal, any supplementation, vitamin supplementation, psychedelic use, anything like that. It's recorded in there, or even when I drink and smoke weed and stuff like that, like that's recorded in there. And then gratuity journal. That's the one that I want to start. That's number 5. I just want to fill it up with good stuff that happened throughout the year, right? So probably gonna start it out, but not something I need to enter in all the time, but like definitely something that like I want to just fill up with goodness, right? Like just look back and be like, hey, you know what? It's not bad. It's a good thing that happened. But today I want to talk about. I was sitting in McDonald's enjoying a peppermint mocha, and I let my mind wander and write, and it's sort of pretty vague, but it's just what's been on my mind today, especially because like I was sitting there scrolling through Instagram, and I'm like, there's no way this can be so bad for you that it's gonna ruin your life. That you have to be able to pull more out of such a negative light. You have to be able to pull something positive from it, and I think that this entry here that I wrote down sort of highlights how I'm starting to perceive an addiction to social media or the information economy, whatever. And I hope that you might be able to take away from this, if you're actually paying attention for that side of things. I hope that you might be able to take something away from it. But I get kind of wordy, but I think the idea is there, and I'll try and elaborate on it as I go through it. But anyways, so this part specifically is from my journal last year. It was like December 28th, 2022 when I wrote it. And this is what I says. So it says, to live free and dream fully. Oh, sorry. The title of it is Freedom. That's the title of my entry. It's just Freedom. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. I might have named another entry Freedom at some point. But anyways, to live free and dream fully. To become someone fueled not by arrogance, but of confidence in my abilities and knowing where I stand. And to live free of chains. So to live free of any sort of limitations on your growth, right? Like that's an idealistic world, a utopia of the mind where you can just explore without inhibition, and it's nice and everything, but I think you have to have inhibition to actually provide direction to explore in the first place, right? You can't just explore everything simultaneously. You have to have limitation in direction, and that provides a sense of purpose in that direction, right? So anyways, so freedom is relative to your description of such a concept. There are chains that grasp your attention, such as financial obligations, educational obligations, familial obligations, or even health commitments, right? So what I mean by that is like your freedom of choice of time, your freedom of choice through time, whatever, is limited by any of these sort of obligations, right? So health commitments, even sleeping is considered a commitment, right? Like you gotta get enough sleep in, which is a long time. Like that's, still just about 60 hours a week, whatever. Yeah, so generally speaking, health commitments to stay in shape. Some people commit as many as 20 hours. I'm about 20 hours a week, or whatever you deem necessary. However, is there a matrix of evaluating how and where your attention is divided, and how can it be divided? So, in my objective journal, I divided it into fitness, career, growth, living, sleeping, and then resting and recovery. So, sort of not quite sleeping, but not quite doing anything, just resting and recovery, relaxing. We are educated by whatever we choose to learn from, to focus upon. And I was reading Carl Sagan's book, The Demon Haunted World, and he discusses how our critical faculties are in decline. And I asked the question, are our critical faculties in decline, or is the focus upon the system just changing? Have we satisfied our fundamental necessities as outlined by Maslow's hierarchy of needs to such an extent that our main priority is discovering which life plan we should choose to pursue as we discover similarities with our own ambitions within the infinite plethora of opportunities that is the service and technology industry, right? So, food, shelter, the basic stuff is pretty well, like, in most first world countries, it's not a main focus point, right? There's almost like that divide that you've had that part is satisfied now you're looking into these next, that self-actualization, obviously at the top of the pyramid, right? You're starting to explore those realms, and I think that's our main focus, which is such a hard focus to derive. So I think that these critical faculties, Sagan describes it as they're declining because we're not paying attention to it, but I think that they are satisfied and they don't need to necessarily keep growing because our focus can be shifted over here now that those ones are satisfied. Anyways, how must we navigate the wealth of information available to us? So how do you navigate infinite information? How can we steer? How do you steer that, filter of information, right? So how do you steer that infinite plethora that you can find on the internet, right? Because the internet's been growing and growing and growing, and same as all the AI and stuff like that. But like, how do you actually navigate it now, right? Like, how can you, dance through the information? How do you steer it? So through morality, through creativity, are the screens rightfully stealing our attention because we, because we may find purpose or direction from such a source? Is an addiction to social media so bad if it provides an opportunity for learning how to become a competent salesperson, to sell your vision of the world and the opportunities surrounding our lives to someone a couple of years younger with a little more time? Is tailoring your education towards the media you are absorbing in itself a limitation of your freedom to choose your passage through time? Is it an opportunity to build your own vision of your life, as opposed to because they say that absorbing so much information, you get your TikTok brain and you lose that ability to create for yourself. But what happens if it is actually molding your vision of reality? Is that a problem? If it's a bad vision of morality, if it's a bad vision of reality, how do you identify it as a bad vision or a corrupted vision or a distracted vision? I don't think it's all that bad. Okay, so is it an opportunity to build your own vision of your life in moderation? Can you not be inspired and restricted? The evaluation of our modern North American society has found itself revolving around the social media and major tech industries. The problem we face are discovering what compass we will use to steer the infinite flow of information. I argue that your morality, your capacity for goodness, how hard you are willing to fight for that which you hold dear, in itself provides an opportunity for navigating the world as we perceive it. That's pretty self-explanatory. So I ask you, what type of information are you absorbing? What motivates you? Are you using that source of motivation to navigate your information? Right? So those are questions that I asked myself, and I was like, anyways. And I came up with my own answers in my own right. And I think that I think those are the sort of questions that allows you to reflect upon your tendencies and your habits. Most of the information we receive should be applied to alternate timelines. So this is where I started exploring. I didn't go in that depth, but I like where it's going and how you can apply it. Anyways, most of the information we receive should be applied to alternate timelines. Applicable information must be reinforced within the time frame established by the plan that you set. A mandatory discernment for information deemed valuable for the phase of life or area of study in the present context. So that's just where I'm gonna end it. What I mean by that is you learn in school, in the education system, you're flooded by so much information. You got to study and regurgitate and throw it out, and then everybody brain dumps it after. And I think that if you were, as opposed to preparing for the entire career, if you were preparing for a phase of your life, let's say you learned only, you divided your time so that 1 year or 3 months into the future, 6 months into the future, 1 year into the future, you're going to learn about, this sort of information or this, how do you describe it? This breakdown of information, right? So let's say 50% health and wellness, 25% medical, right? First aid training, and 25% social psychology. You do that for 3 months, and then for those 6 month period, you're breaking that down into 75% health and wellness and 25% social psychology, whatever. But what happens if you could break down certain time frames and areas of study? And my mind's going, but that's sort of where I was going. I think it makes sense, but I might just be going crazy. I don't know. But anyways, let me know your thoughts if it makes sense. If it doesn't, then whatever. Yeah. Thanks for tuning in if you are. If you aren't, then you're missing out. But toodles.